3 constructs built to copy the galaxy's deadliest hunters were already closing in before the countdown even finished, and I was the only cadet standing in the hollow without claws, fangs, or armor to slow them down. 300 cadets from every predator species packed the stands above me, certain this trial would prove that Predator Academy's first human cadet never belonged behind its gates. Earth had spent 6 years negotiating that single seat, and somehow it had landed on me. Every species in the stands wanted to watch it disappear in under a minute. The horn sounded, and the nearest construct came straight at me, low and fast, aiming to drive me into the wall before I could even think of a plan. I had one advantage none of the scaled, clawed cadets in that arena understood yet. I was built to keep moving long after they expected me to stop. I dropped low and let its shoulder graze past me instead of meeting it head-on. The crowd above sucked in a breath, certain I had panicked. I had not panicked. I had simply refused to fight the fight they wanted me to fight. The second construct came from my left, faster than the first, and I used the one thing no instructor at this academy had ever trained a cadet to need: patience that did not break under pressure. I waited until it committed fully to the lunge, then turned sideways, and let its own speed carry it past me into the wall plating. 1 down. The third construct held back, circling, waiting for me to tire the way every instructor here assumed a clawless species would. They had never watched a human run for hours without stopping, because no other species in that arena could do it, and none of them had ever needed to learn how. I matched its pace and kept my breathing even while the stands grew quiet around us. Confusion does strange things to a predator's instincts. When the construct finally broke and lunged, I was already moving into the space it had just left, and my palm landed flat against the marked panel on its back before it finished turning. The horn sounded twice. Trial complete. I stood in the center of the hollow with my chest heaving, and every cadet in the stands stared at me like I had just broken something they believed was unbreakable. Commandant Skarn stepped onto the floor, his 4 eyes studying me the way a hunter studies a stain on the ground that should not be there. He had voted against my admission. Every report I read on the journey here said so. "Cadet Cole," he said, "the constructs respond to speed and aggression. You used neither. Explain that." I told him patience was not the same as weakness, and survival never asked which species invented it first. Before he could answer, a cadet pushed through the crowd, taller than me by 2 heads, with plating along his arms that caught the light every time he moved. Vex, the top student of the academy for 3 years running, and the reason half the cadets in this place walked around like every trial had already been decided in their favor. "The constructs are reflex tests," he said, looking down at me. "Beating a machine proves nothing. Earth wasted a seat on a creature built for transport ships, not a training ground for the fiercest hunters in known space." I did not answer right away. Answering too fast was a habit my training back on Earth beat out of me years ago. I waited until the noise around us settled, then told him I had not come here to prove I belonged. I had come here to prove what I could survive, and survival was not something he had ever been forced to learn. Commandant Skarn watched the exchange without expression, then announced that the second trial would begin within the hour, a tracking exercise through the wilderness dome on the lower level, known across the academy as the Long Hunt. No cadet had ever failed the construct trial and then failed the Long Hunt on the same day, he said, looking directly at me when he said it. I understood the warning hidden inside that statement. He was not warning me. He was giving Vex and every cadet loyal to him a clear target before the dome doors even opened. The wilderness dome copied 4 planetary biomes inside a single chamber, thick forest blending into open rock fields, then wetland, then a stretch of frozen ground near the far wall. 12 cadets entered through 12 separate gates, myself included, each required to track and tag 3 holographic targets hidden somewhere inside before the dome cycle ended. The targets were never the real challenge. The real challenge stepped out from behind a rock formation 40 meters from my gate. 3 cadets wearing Vex's training colors, clearly not interested in hunting holograms. I had expected this. Commandant Skarn had all but announced it on the trial floor, and Vex was never subtle enough to hide his intentions even when he tried. I had 2 advantages they had not accounted for. The dome's shifting biomes meant temperature and light changed every few hundred meters, and humans read terrain differently than species built around claws and raw strength. I broke toward the wetland section instead of the open rock field, knowing the soft ground would slow heavier cadets while barely touching my pace. It worked exactly as I hoped. Their footing sank with every step while mine barely left a mark. By the time they reached the tree line on the far side, I had already doubled back through the frozen section, found the first 2 targets exactly where the dome's natural path suggested, and tagged them both within minutes of each other. The third target sat directly inside the open rock field, The one stretch of ground built for speed and raw power. The one place where every advantage shifted back toward the cadets chasing me. I could have gone around, and a careful cadet would have, but careful was never going to convince 300 predator-born cadets that humans belonged in this academy. I needed something they would remember. I ran straight through the open field, faster than expected, not because my legs were stronger than theirs, but because I had trained my body to spend energy in long, steady waves, instead of the short, powerful bursts every scaled hunter in that dome was built around. Vex's group caught sight of me halfway across and gave chase immediately, certain they had me cornered before the tree line. They did not understand that I was not running toward the target. I was running toward the exact spot where the dome's terrain shifted from rock to frozen ground again, a transition their heavier frames would struggle to cross at speed. The moment my boots hit the ice slick edge, I cut sideways instead of forward. 2 of the 3 cadets chasing me lost their footing entirely, sliding past the target zone before they could stop themselves. The third, Vex himself, adjusted in time, but adjusting cost him the half-second I needed. I tagged the final hologram before he closed the last few meters between us. The dome horn sounded, ending my trial early, a rare result reserved for cadets who completed every objective with time remaining. Vex stood there, chest heaving, staring at the empty space where the target had been, while I caught my breath beside him and said nothing at all. Silence said more than anything I could have told him. News of the long hunt spread through the academy faster than any official report could. By the next morning, the instructors changed the team assignments for the pack trial, the exercise where 4 cadets had to clear a moving structure called the shifting vault before time ran out. I was placed with the 3 lowest-ranked cadets in my class, a decision Commandant Skarn made no effort to disguise as anything other than a test of whether I could lift others up or simply outrun every problem alone. My team did not want me there. A cadet named Rin made that clear within the first 10 seconds. "Humans fight alone," she said. "Nothing about your species can be trusted to fight beside anyone else." I told her she was half right. Humans had spent most of our history fighting each other long before we ever left our own planet. But the other half was wrong, because the only reason humanity survived long enough to reach the stars was learning to work together when the alternative meant losing everything. The shifting vault was built to punish cadets who relied on instinct alone, its walls and floors rearranging every few minutes based on pressure plates none of us could see in advance. Every other team in the academy approached it the same way, sending their strongest cadet ahead to force a path through by raw power. I suggested something different. I asked Rin and the other 2 cadets to call out the pattern of the wall shifts as we moved, sharing timing instead of relying on reflexes to react after the walls had already changed. It felt slow at first, almost insulting to cadets trained to trust their bodies over their voices. Then the pattern became clear. The vault did not move randomly. It responded to weight and movement across the floor, which meant we could predict it instead of reacting to it. I had 1 cadet hold position to anchor the pattern while the rest of us moved in sequence, something none of the other teams had even considered, because none of them had been trained to think in terms of timing and coordination the way every human child learns from the first team game they ever play. We cleared the vault with 4 minutes left on the clock, faster than any team that week, faster than Vex's own team had managed the day before. Rin did not apologize for what she said earlier. She did not need to. As we walked out of the vault together, she finally spoke. "Is that how your kind always wins, Ethan? By talking instead of fighting?" I told her that was exactly the point. We had learned the hard way that the species who stopped to think usually outlasted the species who never did. The final trial in any cadet's first year was the apex trial, faced alone, with no team and no construct built around predictable patterns. Every cadet who entered the chamber faced the same opponent, a biomechanical predator called the Ashen, built from data gathered across 1,000 years of conflict between the galaxy's most lethal hunting species. Less than 1 cadet in 20 completed it without retreating to the exit gate. Before I entered, Commandant Skarn told me plainly, "No cadet from a species without claws, armor, or enhanced senses has ever finished the Ashen trial. I want to know if you understand what waits on the other side of that gate." "I understand completely," I said, and walked through anyway. The Ashen moved like nothing I had trained against before, fast in bursts no human could match in a straight line. It was built around the same instinct every hunter species in this academy carried, overwhelming speed delivered in short, explosive bursts. It came at me twice in the first minute, and both times I barely cleared the distance needed to avoid it. On the second pass, it closed near enough that I felt the rush of air behind my heel as it swept past. I understood something the Ashen's designers never accounted for. Every predator construct in this academy was built to win fast, because every species training here was built to win fast. None of them were built for a fight that lasted. I stopped trying to outmaneuver it directly and started running instead, drawing the Ashen through every section of the chamber, forcing it to chase rather than strike. Its bursts of speed came less often with each pass, the gaps between them growing longer as its systems worked to keep pace with mine. On the third pass, it tried something new, cutting straight through the center of the chamber instead of circling the outer wall, almost catching me in the open before I reached the next biome wall. My lungs burned, and for the first time since the gate closed behind me, I understood exactly how close this fight could come to ending the wrong way. I kept moving anyway, because stopping was never an option I had trained for. The crowd watching through the observation glass above the chamber had gone completely silent. I could feel Vex's eyes on me even though I never looked up to check. On the fourth pass, the Ashen's burst came late, slower than before, and I used the half-second that bought me to change direction completely, leading it straight toward the chamber's reinforced containment wall instead of away from it. The construct, built entirely around forward momentum and instinct, could not adjust in time. It crashed into the wall, systems flooding the chamber with shutdown signals, and the trial horn sounded for the first time in Academy history before the full 10-minute mark had even passed. I had not beaten the Ashen with strength or claws or speed it could match. I had beaten it with the one thing no predator species in that academy had ever needed to develop: the will to keep going long after everyone else assumed I would stop. Commandant Skarn entered the chamber once the systems finished powering down, studying me the way he had on my very first day, except this time there was no doubt left behind his 4 eyes. He said the Academy's records would carry my name as the first cadet to complete every first-year trial without a single failure, human or otherwise. Vex found me afterward, near the gate where Earth's transport waited to carry the trial results back to the fleet. "I spent 3 years being told your species was too soft to belong here," he said. "I intend to find out exactly how wrong every instructor in this academy has been." I sent one message back to Captain Olivia Hart before the transport left orbit, the officer who had spent 6 years arguing for Earth's single seat in this place. I told her the seat was no longer something we had to fight to keep. Predator Academy had spent 1,000 years training the galaxy's strongest hunters. It had never trained to face a species that refused to stop. And from that day forward, every cadet who walked through its gates would learn my name as the greatest nightmare the Academy never saw coming.